What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Monstrosities, Voice Hearts Untouched Conversations podcast, a podcast for Black horror by Black horror. I'm your lovely host, Kaija Fields, back with another episode for you. And I brought back Dana C. Jones, actually. So Dana, for those that did not watch the last episode, give us a little information about yourself.
First, go watch the last episode.
Please watch the last episode.
Yeah. Dana C. Jones, writer, director, filmmaker, journalist, and lover of nerdy things.
Cinephile.
Love that word.
We cannot do an episode on It Chapter 1 without talking about It Chapter 2, made in 2019, directed by Andy Muschietti, starring Bill Skarsgård. Like, it was everything. And, you know, just to kind of just hop into it, Bill Skarsgård really showed his ass in this movie. Like, yes, he was like, I'm Pennywise. Like, it was, the performance was a lot more powerful. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of going to let Dana steal the show, but I just have a few things to say before I do that. This movie was long as fuck. 3 hours.
Was it really?
Yes, that movie was 3 hours.
Hold on. That ass? It was 3 hours?
Got to know. The movie was 3 hours long. Oh, well, just about. Because It Chapter 1 was 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Wow, it really was.
Yes, that movie was long. It didn't feel
like 3 hours. I had a great time watching it.
I was sitting there like, I'm drunk. Like, when is it going to end? And then the Old Spice guy. Anyways. Okay, so I just want to talk about the first kill. Going into how uncomfortable it made me feel. But of course, if you read the book, you know that it's in there with Adrian and the hate crime towards the gay couple in the beginning of the movie. It was very uncomfortable for me, even though I had read the book. I knew it was going to come up eventually. But it was just so uncomfortable. But
was that kill, like, did that take place, like, back in time?
No. That was the opening for the 27 years later. Okay. So of course, well, it's noted that Mike had noticed that a bunch of children were missing, but then that was kind of like that thing that was like, what the fuck, like, you know what I mean? Because
that makes sense why
they were at the carnival.
It makes sense why Pennywise was there.
Yes.
Because obviously carnival, a lot of kids.
Absolutely.
And also with the carnival in the last one. But also too, it's like because he got beat up from the hate crime.
It was fear. And so it was a lot of
the fear of possibly drowning.
Yes, and so that's why he swooped in and was like, hey, you know, this could be a snack.
Literally.
But the scene that really, just speaking on just like a gory, horrific level, like that scene where he goes in and he like bites his heart or like rips his heart out, that was intense. I liked it. But it was also really sad, especially because like that social climate has not changed in a sense. And so I don't know, it was triggering, but at the same time, on a horrific standpoint, it was like a kill, but it's just like, no, like, you know. This movie has a lot more comic relief. In retrospect to the first film. Also, I think the casting for this film was absolutely
Bill Hader.
Bill Hader. Period. Finn is a genius.
Like, people was all like, "Oh yeah, James McAvoy." No,
Bill Hader. James McAvoy. No,
Bill Hader is the guy in this movie. Yeah. Like, it's like, for me, it's like Bill Hader, Bill Skarsgård. Yeah. Like,
I think also people don't appreciate Andy Bean, who played Stanley, because when I first saw it, I thought that they CGI'd Stanley's face on that actor, but no, that's him. They look. I would have been so scared.
Like, they did good casting in the sense of, like, you know, all the other characters. It's like you didn't have to question who was who.
Yeah,
like,
you knew exactly who it was.
Whatever.
I just really didn't like the wig that they gave Mike, but that's neither here nor there. It's not as bad as Tyler Perry wigs, but I digress. Yeah, again, Bill Hader as Finn. I got my notes again. Jessica Chastain, who is playing the older Beverly Marsh, who is played by Sophia Lillis, I think is that how you pronounce her name. James Ransom as well, who plays Eddie. They cut his facial hair off and he looks just like Eddie. Yeah. So whoever came up with that, chef's kiss, amazing. So Bill's, like we said, Bill Skarsgård is back. So it's 27 years have passed since the Losers Club defeated Pennywise in the first sequence. They moved on with their lives. Beverly moved. Everybody moved except for Mike. Mike decided to stay, and Mike lives in this library and obsesses over how to defeat Pennywise. So yeah, Mike stayed in Derry. Stanley was married. Ben is a very attractive. You know how they played that scene? He's an architect. Yes. You know how they played that scene out because they had the bigger guy who was in charge of the meeting, and I'm like, oh look, it's Ben, and then they show Ben, and I'm like, oh my God, Ben. And I think he's Australian. I think the actor who plays Ben. Okay. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think he's Australian. I know he has an accent, but Bill is a famous author because if you know in Stephen King's movies, somebody has to be a writer. Like in The Shining, it's always him. Yeah, it's always him. Yeah. So and then also with Bill and him being an author, he has terrible endings, which is also something that is true to Stephen King. So, Beverly is married to a very abusive man who is similar to her father. Eddie sells insurance, and he is also married to a very overbearing woman who is similar to his mom. And I think I covered everybody. Yeah, Stanley, Mike. Yeah, cool. So Mike, like I said, notices that there's some missing kids in Derry, and he reaches out to all the losers, and the losers, once they kind of figure out who, because once you disperse, they kind of forgot about all of the
except for Mike.
Exactly, because he stayed in Derry. So once they disperse and they come back, or once they get that call from Mike, they're panicking. Like Eddie crashes his car, Richie throws
everybody
up.
Something bad happens.
Exactly, you know. And
it wasn't like they're, I may be making this up, but didn't their scar start to bother them beforehand? But they didn't know, they kind of forgot why they even had a scar there until Mike called. Yeah, and then Mike calls, and then they come to Derry, and then they go to that Chinese restaurant, and they're eating food. And but they even didn't know why they were going.
Exactly.
It wasn't until something bad was gonna happen. They were like,
it wasn't until the weird shit was going on they realized that it was Pennywise's doing.
Right.
That was why
they were there.
And then they were like, "Fuck this shit! I'm out. I'm about to dip." Yeah. And everybody, except for Stanley, of course. Trigger warning: Stanley was extremely traumatized. If you watched the first episode, we were talking about how he got his face munched on by the painting lady, and that experience has really traumatized him to where he took his life. So he was not able to go to Derry to help the Losers Club, avenge for Pennywise. So that was just, and that scene made me cry. That scene still makes me cry. It was very, very sad. Again, because the actor looks just like, you can see that child. You can see the child in Stanley when that happens.
And it's funny because it kind of hits twice. It's like you see him take his life, but then also when all the Losers Club meet up again, it's kind of like Beverly's the first one to clock that he's not there because she saw everybody's death.
Exactly, because when she looked into the deadlight, so she got that kind of,
which is a great concept.
Yeah,
but
and they're like, "What's wrong?" And Ben's there to save the day because Ben's in love with Beverly. Anyway, Bill's like, "I'm married. I don't care." So they they get to the hotel and they figure out what's really going on. So they're trying to leave, and then they realize what happens to Stanley, and they realize that they made a blood oath, so they really can't leave. And so that's when they go on to just. I think that's when Mike introduces the native ritual to Bill.
Yes,
Bill is kind of
Bill.
He literally drugs Bill. Gave him a little shroom.
Yeah.
And
Oh, was it shroom? I thought it was tea.
It was tea, but shroom.
But
I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, it's shroom. Gave him a little ayahuasca.
Literally. That's literally what it was.
And Bill's like, what the fuck? And so that happens, and so Bill's on board, and then they realize with the ritual that they all have to find tokens. And so really the tokens are them digging deep within their childhood fears and how that manifests into their adulthood fears. And so going into that, you have Bill, who is still dealing with grief from his brother's death, and you can see that when he's interacting with children in the movie and how he's extremely overprotective over these young kids.
There's a kind of direct replay of
of what happened.
The kid was in the same street or same house.
Yeah, and he was getting ready to go to the carnival, and
he was like, "Do not go to that carnival."
And he's like, "I just want to go to the carnival. I just want to go to the." That kid was an asshole.
I get it as a movie and things have to be, but it's like if I was a kid and someone was like, "Do not go here," and they were acting wild, and even if I didn't know them, I'm like, I probably shouldn't go there.
That's because we're black kids.
Hey.
Do not go to the carnival.
And that's why Mike was the one that he was like, "Hey, Pennywise is back."
Hello, look.
Can we speak on Mike a little bit? So, for one, I think that Chapter 2 is better than Chapter 1. I think that's the best movie that's come up this far. You can at me because I have the time, but like I think that Mike, because he didn't just get obsessed with Penny, he got obsessed with Derry as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think that is really interesting because it's kind of a recollection on like him being a black character and his obsession with history and how that affects present. And I felt that is indicative of black people as a whole with racism, because it's like you have to understand where it came from to see how it affects. If you don't see where it came, you just like trying to imagine it happening today is kind of like unbelievable. It's like racism does affect me through housing or through education or through public health, or it's just like, but when you see it, it's like, oh no, no, it really, really does, and it's obvious once you start reading. And I think that's why he was able to even kind of realize like kids are going missing, and it's like, no, they're not missing, because I know.
Yeah.
No, I think Mike is a very smart character in that way, even though
he's very intuitive.
Even though he did drug his friend, but whatever.
Don't drug your friends, guys. So we talked about Bill. Beverly, of course, is dealing with the grief from her father's abuse.
Yes.
There's also a scene where she goes back to the apartment to get her token, and she is encountered by a very old lady with large boobs that are saggy that chases her.
That was in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wish they wouldn't have put that in the trailer.
I wish they wouldn't have put as much, because it's like I didn't know that, like, because like in the trailer with the scene with the old lady,
you can see Pennywise.
Yeah. And then the scene with her dad, it's like that's the same scene, but they were both in the trailer. I wish they didn't show both. But it was a good setup for the trailer.
It was. So yeah, she was chasing her around and she got her token. So for Richie, I think Richie's character definitely develops a lot more in the second film, because Richie is dealing with his sexuality and dealing with the fact that he could possibly be queer. And so Pennywise, I feel like, plays a lot on this fear, especially the scene where he comes down on the balloons and he's like, I know your secret, your dirty little secret. And at first I was like, what? And then I realized throughout the film that Richie could potentially be queer, and he's dealing with that identity. And then also in the book, one of Henry Bowers's like accomplices or whatever had a crush on Richie. And I don't know if you remember in the first film,
the arcade scene.
Yes. In the first film, whenever Henry Bowers's friend dies and it says I Heart Dairy on the balloon, that was in the book. I think he had the shirt that said I Heart Dairy, and that's when he died. So that was a representation of him dying because he actually liked Richie. But of course, you deal with Henry Bowers, you deal with homophobia, you deal with racism. You're not going to come out as queer. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, with Eddie manifesting his mother into his wife, dealing with the leper that was in the first film, and dealing with just
that leper
was the makeup, the CGI.
Special effects
was on it.
All of it.
Because that nose, and it was
disgusting. It was disgusting.
It was almost as scary as the paint lady.
Yeah, but I think because that one was so, it was like really gory and like literally in your face.
And drooling.
Anyway.
What's up with Eddie and drool?
But I mean, like, if you think about it, like, I think people as a whole have a thing, because drool is disrespectful. Because it's like, mind you, like, it's kind of like a common thing that like people get spit on, we're fighting. Yeah. Like even people who are super like, you know, who are dovish, like if you spit on that, like people get spit on, something about that is like, wow, the disrespect.
Yeah, it's like getting muffed.
And so to have it be, and that's why I don't know, like, because I had brothers and I'm a boy and we were childish, like I used to pin my brother down and get on top of him and just dangle spit in his face. It would never fall. What? You never did that?
No.
Y'all know what I mean. Like if you had brothers, like you definitely did that, and it was just the funniest thing, and it never fell because I wasn't that trifling. But like it got close, and I sucked it back up. But I think that's the thing of him and Drool, and also like Drool stinks, and it's
very interpersonal.
It's all germs. This is literally germs. That's not yours.
It's very interpersonal.
So
yeah. Blech. Sorry.
So we did Mike. We did Beverly.
We did Eddie.
Richie. Did we?
Well, no, we didn't do Mike. Mike really just wants to get the fuck out of Derry. Mike wants to live beyond.
He has a. It's kind of like what I like about Mike is that it's kind of like he treats Derry like a book.
Yeah.
So it's like, you read like a really long book and then you finish and you're like, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
Or you finish the series and you're like, what am I supposed to do now? And he really has to think like, at the end, Pennywise is gone, like for real, like they actually killed him.
So what do I do now?
I don't really think he's really dead, but like they killed him for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what do I do? And his Bill asked him, he's like, what are you gonna do? And he's like, I might go here, I might stay. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that idea of kind of the purpose that was, I don't think he chose it, I feel like it was given to him.
Yeah.
Is fulfilled, and it's like now he can really make decisions for himself.
Yeah.
And to feel that feeling as a grown, and this is not a grown man, like he's not like 20, like no, not like us 30. Grown. He's like pushing 40 grown, and it's like I can really live for myself.
Yeah.
What do I do?
And not be in the shadow of Pennywise.
Yeah. And Derry as a whole.
Yeah. That's
amazing.
That's an interesting perspective.
Did we talk about Ben?
We did not. Ben's fear is really just like his undying love for Beverly, and also just facing the idea of being bullied. Acceptance.
I don't think that's his fear. His main fear, really.
What's his main fear?
I feel like his main fear is I feel like he has body dysmorphia.
Really?
Yes.
Do tell.
Because he was like the fat kid growing up.
Yeah.
And it's just all like when we see him and he's like attractive and fit and everything, it seems like a success story. But just because it visually looks good doesn't mean that the journey was successful. Because there are people that have traditionally physically fit and appealing bodies and don't see themselves as that, and because they might have grown up fat and British for it, they go overboard and go extreme with it, and they're always kind of judgmental upon themselves of how they look at any given point.
Absolutely.
And it's like, and they kind of start to posture to get validation from everybody else, and I think that's why, to me, like his relationship with Beverly, when they met up again, was kind of him, to me, looked like him posturing, because it's like he kind of went back into that little fat kid again. And I think that's why like that fear resonated throughout the film, because wasn't when he went to go get his token, it was like he went back as a kid.
Yeah,
like
to the light.
Beverly was like laughing at him, right? I think that's that. It had to do with his image, because she was like, "You think I would be interested in someone like you?" And it was all like his appearance, and also like that kind of love triangle. And it's like, well, yeah, why would she like me when there's
Bill,
my friend that is obviously more wanted?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is, and not so much as
really
love.
Interesting. I never saw it that way. See, perspective. And Ben is very nice looking now. I think that actor is Australian. I think he's either because I was looking at the behind the scenes and I was trying, because I know, isn't he British? Isn't James McAvoy?
Yes.
So he's British.
I was thinking of Magneto, who's Swedish, I think.
He's British, and then I think the actor who played Ben is Australian, I think, but whatever. So moving forward to
He's from New Zealand.
Yes. Oh, he's from New Zealand?
I just looked it up.
Okay,
yes.
Cool beans. Moving forward, also side note, so whenever Mike introduces Bill to the Chud, which is a ritual, the native ritual that is supposed to defeat Pennywise. After
Isn't that a nod to wasn't there like a movie in the 80s called The Chud, and it was like, it's like a sewer creature?
You can find out.
Or am I bugging?
I don't know. We can find out.
We'll get back to you. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But go ahead.
Yeah, the ritual, after they got all their tokens and got together and did the ritual, it sucked and it didn't work. And Bill is like, we did all this for nothing. You know what I mean?
For nothing.
But really, Mike's intention, because he knew that the ritual wasn't going to work, was that they could manifest the power of belief, which of course plays into the first film at the end when they're like, hey, we're not afraid of you, we can beat you. And so, now they're adults, and it's like we have this extra strong power of belief, and we can use that to manifest to defeat Pennywise. So
going back to the end of the last movie, so when Pennywise said fear at the end, do you think that was Pennywise realizing that they're actually still afraid? because I feel like it's a different, like, just because you face your fear does not mean that you're no longer afraid of it. Like, say if you're afraid of heights and you bungee jump, that doesn't mean you're less afraid. And so I think that overcoming your fear is a constant thing. Like, you keep doing it, and so therefore it gets easier, but you're still afraid. Yeah. Because I think that the absence of fear is more so, isn't really bravery. I think it's just kind of mundaneness, stoicness. Yeah. And I think that's two different things. Because it's like, if you're afraid of heights and I'm not, to you it looks like bravery, but to me it's like there's no fear there, so there's nothing there. Absolutely. But like you, the person facing it, that's where the actual courage and bravery comes in. Yeah. And I think Pennywise saw us like they're still scared.
So I can come back.
It's like I'm weak right now, but I'm gonna come back, and not until they were adults where they like.
And also what was really important was the fact that they dismantled, because it's kind of like this whole notion of united we stand. So whenever the Losers Club, like that scene in the first movie with the rock throwing where they were defeating Henry Bowers. They were together, and that's when they finally overcame him. And you could look at him and be like, "Oh shit! Like they really beat me."
Kind of like going through a haunted house.
Exactly, like they were together. So Pennywise was like, "Okay, y'all are gonna be apart soon within these 27 years,
and I can come in."
Exactly. So moving into some of my favorite kills in the movie, Pennywise is trifling, especially that scene where he is under the bleachers with that cute little girl. I was gonna
say that's the kill. That's the one. That's the one.
He's so trifling because
the
innocence, the charm. Oh
like,
my gosh, that Bill Skarsgård really came with it because even me knowing who Pennywise, I know Pennywise.
Like he doesn't like it. Like
he hates children. Yeah. I was like, oh, he ain't gonna kill her. He gonna let her. He gonna spare her. No, he's not. And then when I saw his little eye,
I was like, oh,
he was drooling. He was like, I was like, yeah.
Because like I think that like what made that kill so good is because even as an adult, he tricks you. Yeah. And it's like honestly, like the best way to get someone on your side is to empathize with how they feel. Yeah. And so it's just all like, she feels different because she has a mark on her face.
Yeah. I can take
like,
that
people
and
don't
use
like
that.
me. Like I'm a clown, and that's why I'm under these. That's why I have no friends. I'm under these bleachers. And she's like, oh, that makes sense. I'm under these bleachers too, so I don't have no friends. Like that makes sense. And just that pause when he's like, I'm gonna blow it away. You're gonna be fine.
And he counts.
Count to 3. And then when he waits on 3 and she's waiting and she's all like,
you didn't say chomp. I was
that was the best part of the movie.
I was
hands
shook.
Down.
I was
down.
Like, no.
And first of all, and it's how you know this happens to white people, because if they were black, they would not let their kid go under the bleachers
by themselves. And then if it was a black kid, if it was a black kid, it would be, we ask a lot of questions. Why you under the bleachers, mister? Why you out on that clown costume? Ain't no carnival.
And then you would have heard him out. Why are you under the bleachers right now?
Exactly.
Get off under there.
Exactly.
The fact that she could be gone for that was a long scene. We were with that girl for a long
minute.
time.
Yeah, we were with her for a minute, and then we were just sitting like.
Where are your parents?
I have.
You let her go under the bleachers? Ew.
And then moving into the funhouse scene, which was probably visually, and I'm super like not a fan of CGI, but that scene where Pennywise comes up against the glass and he's like has that big smile, and I'm like,
it kind of seemed like the kid didn't see Pennywise. To me,
maybe he was only maybe he was only seen by Bill.
Yeah. It's like
I think Pennywise even blocked off a section of the fun house to where like he couldn't get to him.
So it's kind of like you're seeing your brother die again. So,
exactly.
Because like I guess the fear was for him.
Yeah.
And the kid was kind of just like an innocent bystander essentially.
And then he was like, I'm gonna use you to be Georgie in this sense.
Yeah. Because like it wasn't, which is so interesting because it's like the kid wasn't scared of anything at that point. He was more freaked out by Bill because
because Bill's like, don't go to the carnival. He's
like, but it's just all like,
to the carnival.
But like Pennywise just like dragging these deaths out.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's the second time he did that in that film, and just because
you still have this hope that he's gonna let this kid go.
But he's not.
But you know it's Pennywise.
And
so
also like when he hits his head on the glass, because it's like plexiglass is pretty strong, and Pennywise being all-powerful alien, he could have just broke through it and killed him. But the fact that he hits the plexiglass and showed that it's like, oh, he can't get in. and he does it like 3 more times and doesn't even break. And when it finally does, and him just like his smile getting bigger and bigger each time it cuts back to him.
I love that. Oh, that scene is so visually appealing. Like so visually appealing.
Yeah, and the fact that he even lets Bill live.
Yeah,
because he could have killed Bill too, but he's like, I'm gonna wait. Like, but can Penny like?
Come on, Penny. Can Penny?
I really gave it Penny a nickname.
You did. Come on, Penny.
But it makes it seem like is feasting on adults harder because adults can kind of rationalize better.
I feel like feasting on them. Okay. The Losers Club is harder because they know. And so it's kind of like that idea, or I can speak, for example, like, because I deal with anxiety disorder. So I know sometimes when I have an anxiety attack, I'm like, bro, this is just anxiety. Like, I know I'm not going to die, right now. You know what I'm saying? So I know within the back of my mind or my subconscious mind that this is just anxiety. And I just breathe through it and I just go through it. So, for example, if Pennywise was trying to attack me, he can't necessarily get to me as easily because I know that this is a part of an irrational fear. But whenever the fear... Like exactly. So when it's more like, oh my God, I am gonna die, like, and I'm open,
it feels real to you.
Exactly. Then that's when he'll swoop in and be like, chomp, I'm gonna get you.
But that fight or flight kicks in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Stanley's token. Stanley's token in the movie was the shower cap that they wore when they were kids. When they were at Ben's house, I think. And they still needed that shower cap in order to fulfill the unsuccessful.
Never mind. I remember the shower. Okay. I was thinking about the scene when they went down in their little bunker.
Oh yeah.
That's when they hatched their plan, right?
Yeah.
Just like, okay.
And then let's talk about Eddie, because Eddie really saves the day. And spoiler alert, Richie definitely has a crush on Eddie, or had a crush on Eddie. That was a bromance, for real. So Eddie, after he defeats the leper who throws up all this disgusting shit on him, he like overcomes all of his fears of just disease and.
Because I mean, like, if that happens and you're
at this point, you have nothing. Yeah, it's like I'm about to kick ass.
Like a leopard, my baby friend threw up on me. I'm still alive.
So I'm gonna go down, and then this is when
I'm grossed out. Yes, but I'm alive.
This is when Pennywise turns into his origin spider giant fucking deal, and which the CGI was like, bleh. But Eddie was kicking ass, even though he died. Rest in peace, Eddie. Oh, you did?
Because, first of all, when's the last time that we've seen that big a budget given to a horror film? Not even us. That's the thing, because it's it's not one of those it's scary, but it's dramas. That's why we're giving it this budget or whatever. But it's just it is a genre film, and it hits all the points. It has jump scares. It's dark. It uses red, which is played out, but whatever. And they what was that, $200 million, something like that? Yeah.
I feel like they were just throwing money away. Here, you get CGI. You get CGI. Right. You get CGI.
And it's and also it taps into the lore of it. And it's just he chooses to be a clown, but he's really he's an alien. And it's just
demon entity.
Even that kind of merging of sci-fi and horror. Putting it together in that way, where it's not the movie Alien, but it's just it has lore, if it was a fantasy film.
Yeah.
That is great that they got that much money.
So what, if you could, I don't want to say write a love letter to It Chapter 2, what is one thing that you would say you appreciated most about It Chapter 2?
The tone. Because that's a big part of what made me like the second chapter better than the first, because in the beginning of the first one, it was very horror visually, as opposed it was raining and it was kind of gray and all that, and that's why the red and the yellow popped out so much. And it's I don't really like that because I'm getting tired of seeing it all the time. But in the opening of It Chapter 2, it made the town feel like a character in itself, which it is. And I think that's why Pennywise keeps going back to because there's something about that town that has to stoke fear somehow. And I think because it's a small town, it's secluded from the rest of the state and the rest of the country, it's just all like, it's easy for those fears to fester, which is why, like, even currently racism was still there and it wasn't, annexed out.
And also throughout history, Pennywise has been throughout like thousands of years of history, he has been terrorizing Gary, Maine. That's his area. That's
what he's something about, and I like how they just set that tone, and I just really appreciated, like, they didn't lean on the visual horror cues as opposed to, like, the whole world, where it wasn't gray all the time. Like, it was just like a normal day, which I think that's why it also made it more scary for me, because it was just all like, it's not raining, it's not dark, it's scaring
it's
these
a bright
kids,
ass
like, but it wasn't
town.
it wasn't like bright like Midsommar. It wasn't like we're making a point to this. It's like, no, this is Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock and I'm scaring these kids. I'm scaring these kids right now.
Wow,
that's what I liked.
That's interesting. Well, you have it. There you have it, folks.
There you have it.
Chapter 2.
What about you? What even though you like the first chapter better, what's your favorite part about it?
Before we wrap up, my favorite part of it, chapter 2, because I'm more like, oh my god, how do I feel? I really, really appreciated Eddie in that movie, and I really appreciated his sacrifice in that film. Even though the movie was really long, I do appreciate the pace of the movie. Again, like you said, the tone as well, but for me, really, Eddie just sticks out the most. And he really, like that, I feel like I said in the last episode, that was the introduction and the acknowledgement of fears. This film really is like overcoming childhood trauma and how that manifests into adulthood, and how that can play out into who you marry, or where you live, or what you do, or your job. Like, these are things that really, really happen. So I really appreciate Stephen King creating, this artwork and this film, because it really tackles like facing your, like, overcoming your fears. And so I was in the movie theater like, oh, Eddie died and Richie, and I was in tears.
I was in the theater. I watched it again.
I was in tears. So when I say It Chapter 1 is better than It Chapter 2, I'm not like discrediting It Chapter 2. Both of the movies are amazing. Again, Barbara and Andy Muschietti, if I'm saying their last name right, did an amazing job. Bill Skarsgård is amazing. All the cast and crew were amazing. These films were absolutely awesome. So that's it.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah.
Love it.
Thank y'all for coming and looking and seeing as we go through It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 for Kai FX Horror Group's Clown Month for the month of November. This is Monstrosities Voice Podcast, a podcast for Black Horror by Black Horror. Go ahead and go on Instagram and Twitter and follow us on MVHU Podcast. And if you want to follow Kai FX Horror Group on Instagram, it's going to be KF Horror Group. And don't forget to go to kaifxhorror.com. And again, if you want to donate and make sure that this content stays alive, I'll have the donation link in the description. Y'all stay spooky and don't forget to support Black Horror.